Hi, my name is Eri Isomura. I'm a guest artist at McPhail for showing you the tutorial of the Minnesota All-State Mallet Etude. And I think you can tell that there's a lot of notes to work with. So here we go. The main things we want to keep in mind are the pulse, the integrity of the tempos that go fast, slow, and fast. And in those, you have to have contrast. So make sure that you have mallets that are balanced for both sides. Don't make it too hard or else the middle part is not going to sing out. And if it's too soft, then obviously your fast notes aren't going to go through. So make sure you have a pair that you're comfortable with and that won't hurt the instrument, obviously. All right, so digging in, the first part starts with a chromatic. So I would plan it based on where you end. The second measure is B, and then it goes right away down to an octave. So if you're comfortable, I would do the first note of the second measure as a right hand, which means that I'm going to start the chromatics with my right, so that it goes right, 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 right. Obviously for right, left, right? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. But either way, you're going to end with your right so that your left hand has time to go down and play at the same time for your octaves. So start strong. Make sure you use your big muscles to keep the intensity of the forte, but not like lash at it, right? Because we want big, we don't want harsh. So, okay, so then chromatic, you drive first hand, and what happens here in the second measure is that the syncopation is gonna change your tempo, and it's gonna feel very different with the physicality of the triplet 16 notes into this simple meter all of a sudden. Da, ba, 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 bum. So make sure you practice with a metronome. Make sure that your pulse stays the same from measure 1 to measure 2. Like, that is one of the things that is going to make or break a lot of how you're going to shape this first part, because it keeps switching rhythms, but you still have to have the same pulse. Not your like literal heartbeat, but like the 100, quarter goes 100. And do what you can to internalize that no matter what you're playing with your sticks. So with the doubles, what the judges will listen to are how clean your doubles are. If you're flamming your doubles, right, we want to have doubles just right on. Both hands should be going in at the same time. And when you have these really dynamic dynamic expressions happening where you have to be all of a sudden really quiet and then loud and then quiet. So this is where your upstroke and downstroke is going to come into play, because if you have an upstroke ready, or you have, it's all about preparing for which dynamic you're going into. So if you have, right, so the moment I finish so this is the second measure. The moment I finish my first note, I'm already at the very, very, very low, so that I can play my piano as soft as I would like. So it's all about prepping your stick to the dynamic you want it to go before the note, instead of being like, I need a forte now, right? And then sometimes you need to use that upstroke because you don't have time. But if you can, try to balance it out based on planning your, prepping your stroke from beforehand. Measure 10, you're going to go down with your left hand, right? With your right hand's going to stay on B as your left hand travels down the keys. And then I do a paradiddle on first beat of 11, so that I can do the bottom with my left instead of cross-sticking or whatever fancy thing. If you want to do that, by all means, it is a video, so it can be aesthetic. Okay, and the measure 13, you want to go hard starting from measure 13. You don't have a crescendo, but you have accents. And technically, accents are just one dynamic higher. That makes that note one dynamic higher. So don't slash, don't bang, don't go nuts. It's just a matter of making it as a big sound as you can without destroying anything. Okay, and then moving on to the adagio. I would kind of subdivide this as, so if you were thinking in quarters for the first part, think of it in eighth notes, but just a little faster than the quarter note you were thinking. So ba 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 bum. So if you're going this fast in the first part, then go just a little faster, bum, and then this is your eighth note. Da, 3 and 4 and dum, and so on. Okay, and it's adagio, so obviously you don't want to sound like you're counting eighth notes. You want to sound like you're in 4/4 adagio. So think of it in, so really listen to your roll. Make sure it's not metered, and you want to just make that a little bit more vague so that you can reset the tempo for everybody. And then right at measure 17, then you can build your crescendo to mezzo forte without having the eighth note subdivision. You're clearly in 4/4. So make sure you're listening to your roll when you do that. Okay, and when you start your when you start measure 17, I would do like a tiny little kick so that you can start the measure, and then show that that's beat 1, and then you can build toward the next measure. Okay, so again, talking about pulse, when you're thinking in rests in measure 18 and then going into 19, make sure the pulse is the same. That's going to change how the phrase goes, because if 18 is too slow, then it's not going to set you up for 19 pretty well. Okay. All right. So this measure 19, 20 is your show off moment of how artistic you can be. So if you're a drum robot, then this is your time to show that you are not one. And this is to show that you can express and you know how to have a pulse without having metered rolls. So play around with the metronome, practice your roll so that you can fluctuate the speed of the roll based on what phrasing you want to do. So for me, I would get when I get louder, I tend to slow down sometimes. And then when I slow down, then I can kind of open up the phrase more than making it louder. So it's not just not just a dynamic thing anymore. It's more of a shaping and making an artistic phrase within the space that you have. And now we will go on to measure 22, where you go down with the roll. Make sure it's nice and smooth, but you're keeping the pulse again in quarter notes, not in eighth notes. Da 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 bum. Okay, instead of da 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 da. All right, judge are gonna sniff that right away. It's gonna be so easy to tell if you are thinking too much like that. So you can think it, but not play it, right? Think in eighth notes, but don't play it. Okay, and then remember the space in 24, again, it's gonna change from the rolls, so keep that internal pulse very consistent. But with the artistic direction that you can give, because you're a musician, right? You're not gonna do it completely like a robot. 24 is not gonna be like 1 yen, 2 yen, 1 yen, 2 yen, 1, right? It's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You're giving that direction, and one of the trickiest parts in percussion is to show that you're playing a half note, but you're just playing one note, right? So with this 24, really be very obvious of which direction you're taking 24. Are you stepping away and then going boom at 25, or are you going to crescendo with intensity toward 25? So be really obvious with the way you show that. Okay, and then measure 25 to 26 is the transition back into the first tempo. So make sure you're very clear with when the pulse starts. But it doesn't have to be completely, this is the first note, right? Because it's a diminuendo, and it rolls in, kind of blurs into, all of a sudden we're in first tempo again. So you can do that too. Just be very clear that you are back at the first tempo with your with your eighth notes and your triplets. Similar things with the second half, lots of changes in rhythms, so just be careful with the dynamics and prepping your stroke. With the last part is really interesting because there are different ways to stick this. So at measure 34, I would stick it in a way where you start the measure 35 with a left hand. And this will give you a nice head start into the sextuplets, because then kind of roll along into the crescendo. So measure 35. Measure 35 can be alternated. I alternated it because the tempo allows you to, and then you keep the accents driving forward. And this is something you can practice on a snare drum. Accenting da 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 is triplets, right? But now you have all this stuff going on, so it's kind of level 5 snare drum, but on marimba. Okay, so either that, or you can follow the slurs, and you can do doubles based on what you see. What I like to do is prioritize the accents, so that if I were to not alternate it, then I would just do a left, right, right, left, right, right. Then I can really show the accent. But that's if you want to go this, do the double rights. This one. And then you can alternate the last one. Or another one is to just double the similar notes. So left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left. So you can do it that way. If you want to practice accenting the second note of those, then that works as well. So see which one you want to do. Just make sure that you're bringing out the accents and bringing out the crescendo. And then the last note finally is not a grace note, but it's right on the downbeat of the last measure, right? So ba-ba, one E. So make sure it's not a da-da, but da-da. There are two distinct notes that you need to figure out. Okay, good luck and happy practice.